Welcome to Insights in Business. This is a presentation of the Campbell River Chamber of Commerce. And our segment today is tourism, and we're here filming at the Shaw Studios in Campbell River. And I'd like to welcome our guests today. We have Kristen Sauter, who's the Executive Manager of Destination Campbell River. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you.
And Paul Dower, who is the General Manager of the Dolphins Resort and Anglers Restaurant in Campbell River. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you, Colleen.
And Aaron Neely. And Aaron is the Business Development Manager, Islands Region of Pacific Coastal Airlines.
Hi, Colleen.
So, welcome. We're looking forward to a really interesting discussion today. Tourism and hospitality is the number one sector that the Chamber had identified as the economic driver for our community. So obviously a very important sector. And let's just maybe start with you, Kirsten. A lot's happened over the last year. I think you're fairly new to Campbell River, but why don't you start us off by just giving a sense of what has transpired with the new tourism model in Campbell River?
Sure. Thanks, Colleen. Yeah, it's been a big 2017. In addition to it being one of the probably busiest tourism seasons on record for Campbell River, the city of Campbell River had made a big change. In 2016, they made the decision to take on a different model for destination marketing in Campbell River. And as such, Destination Think, the agency that I work for, was awarded the contract to take on all of the destination marketing and visitor servicing activities in the region. Thankfully, the city had done a lot of community engagement and a lot of consultation through the process of the 5-year strategic plan and an annual plan in order to put the MRDT, or hotel tax, into place, which happened in April of this year.
So can I just interrupt you with the MRDT tax? What is that, and how did that come to be?
Okay, so the municipal and regional district tax, as it's known, it's actually been around since 1987. It's a provincial tax that's levied on fixed roof accommodation providers that have 5 rooms or more.
So a tax that is within the accommodation sector?
That's right. So it's levied the same way that PST is at fixed roof accommodation providers.
So the consumer would pay for?
That's correct.
Okay.
It's a 3% tax on any accommodation that fits into that category. And it's legislated to be specifically spent on tourism marketing programs and projects. So it really opened up a lot of opportunity for Campbell River and region to be able to sort of level the playing field and start to compete in the destination marketing space in a way that they maybe hadn't been able to before.
Was there a contribution that was made in addition to that, or how much was spent on tourism in Campbell River prior to the MRDT?
So because it was a function of economic development prior to it becoming its own sort of standalone destination marketing organization, thankfully the city committed what was almost equivalent to matched funds of this MRDT tax, which allows us to have over $500,000 annually to market the destination.
So that's significant.
Absolutely.
That's a funding mechanism to help deliver tourism. But in addition to that model, what happened in terms of how you connected with people, or what advice you got in order to develop a tourism model?
So as I said, we came into the fray in around May. Obviously, beginning of peak season, things were gearing up. We had the visitor center to reopen and reestablish, and stakeholders to re-engage with. We also created a tourism advisory committee here in Campbell River. So this is a way for industry and decision makers to engage and look at the vision for tourism in the community and the region, and make sure that it's sort of a collective and cohesive voice around that table to take the region where it needs to go. As you said, it is a really key industry, and planned well, it can be a sustainable and long-term area for growth.
And you really do need that representation, like you say, around the table, because it's not only what they're bringing to the table, but it's hearing each other comment on what the challenges and what the opportunities are to really help support you in implementing the model.
Absolutely, and I think what's unique and different about this sort of modern model for destination marketing now is Destination Think, the agency that is sort of the parent company, if you will, of Destination Campbell River. There's a lot of insight and information from DMOs around the world that we've worked with. And
DMOs, just so that we,
right.
That's okay.
The 3-letter acronyms I'm notorious for. Destination marketing organizations. In some places you'll hear that interchangeably called a destination management organization.
Oh, okay.
And in a lot of ways, that is part of the role that we play in concert with the Economic Development Office here in Campbell River, just to make sure that we're planning for future growth in an appropriate way, that it's not just about, say, paid media and advertising and promotion of the destination, but that we're taking the insights and the information from the accommodation sector, from the airline industry, from all of the tour operators, and making sure that their challenges and needs are being met and addressed in how we present the destination to the world.
And it's going to be really interesting as we continue chatting on the show about hearing more about that. But I want to just bring back to a couple of comments that you made, Kirsten, and thanks for that overview. You talked about Campbell River had experienced its best year ever. Can you share a bit in terms of the stats of the visitor center, or however you're collecting information to determine that?
Yeah, there was a little bit of a change in the methodology of how visitor center information was collected this year. So from a provincial standpoint, it actually looks like we saw a decline in visitors coming into the visitor center. There's several reasons why that might be accurate or not. But when you're looking at occupancy rate, so basically how full the hotels are, and also our average daily rate, what the average cost of a hotel room is here, Campbell River is performing amazingly well. We were up over 7 points on our
7 points over last year?
Over last year on our occupancy.
Okay. And what does that mean, Kirsten? So when you're talking about 7 points, what would be a good year? You're saying this was a great year, so how does that compare?
Well, even if you look at provincial averages, I mean, at September 30th, looking year to date, the occupancy was 75.4%. So the lowest performing month was back in January, and that was just shy of 50% occupancy.
Wow, that is.
And so because you can see comparative data to other communities across the province, Campbell River performed exceptionally well, particularly through the summer months this year. We were seeing occupancy rates as high as 98.7%.
I was even hearing some people saying they couldn't find a room, that they were having to move outside the community. They wanted to experience Campbell River, but they just couldn't find accommodation in the community.
It's true, but I also see that there's a lot of opportunity for that because of where we're positioned in relation to some of the other more rural communities around us. We actually have a lot of opportunity to play a role in making sure that the way we promote the region is very elastic, that there is a lot of opportunity for people to stay here and take day drives out into the surrounding regions and potentially stay there if accommodation becomes an issue at peak season.
Sure, sounds good. Well, I'm going to move over to you, Paul, and you're a member of the Tourism Advisory Committee, the TAC committee, so it's called. And how did you get involved in this industry, and in your role as general manager? How did you get to the point where you've been a long time in the hospitality tourism industry?
Well, I was born in Campbell River General Hospital in 1972.
Wow.
And I started my journey in tourism in 1988 at April Point Lodge. I started there as a dishwasher and sort of worked my way through the ranks. I worked as a busboy, I worked on the dock, and I became a fishing guide, which was an awesome job, and it's sort of an iconic pastime or sport in Campbell River. So it gave me a real insight into the town and the kind of people that were coming here to visit it. And I guess being from here, seeing it through the eyes of people that were coming to visit, and seeing how impressed they were with the natural beauty of the place, the warmth of the people here, and the general vibe of the place. There's really nothing like Campbell River. So I guess that gave me a perspective about the town that I didn't have until I'd sort of seen it through other people's eyes. And that made me want to give back in some way. So the Tourism Advisory Committee is an opportunity for industry professionals to try to provide guidance and also take direction from the people of the town to try to grow the industry.
That's so interesting what you just said, that oftentimes we just take it for granted, that we live here, and sometimes it does take people to remind us what a special place it is. I think we all appreciate everything we have, but like you say, interacting with visitors every day that tell you what an incredible place it is, it just makes you appreciate again that this is a very special place to live. And I'm going to be interested to hear from Erin some of the impacts that she's seeing that the industry is giving through the airlines and how that's growing. So Erin, a bit of background from your perspective, how you got involved in the airline industry.
Well, I had moved over to the island a few years ago, and had purchased property, but lived in the Lower Mainland, and then moved over and was still commuting back and forth to Vancouver regularly, when a friend at a resort said, "Did you know you can get really reasonable airfare down to Vancouver?" And so I said no, and experienced the joys of regional travel, and realized that I could get away for a weekend and still get back to Campbell River quickly without dealing with ferry delays or bad weather on the roads. And so once I started doing that a bit myself, I was like, this is the greatest thing to do, would fly back and forth in BC, and actively pursued work in marketing with them, and I haven't looked back. It's been great. So I get the best of both worlds. I get to be in Campbell River, and I get to connect with the Lower Mainland when I need to, with a quick and convenient service.
So from the length of time that you've been involved in the industry, has Pacific Coastal Airlines been the main role that you've played in terms of marketing?
In my career, or no, I've always worked in marketing since coming out of college. But as far as the airline, in terms of tourism, we were started by a truck logger 40 years ago who was working the coast. And
Pacific Coastal was started by
yes,
a truck logger?
Yes,
Really?
So our roots go way back in the industry and way back to island culture. And what is, I think, interesting, and it was already started before I came on board, but is the swing from the resource sector to the tourism sector. And that's in the same way that this region's seen the transformation, the airlines going hand in hand with that, and it just complements our services. So we have a lot invested in seeing the success of tourism in the region, and fully understand why people would want to be visiting Campbell River.
Absolutely. So when you talk about that it's aligned with that transition from the resource sector to tourism, certainly the routes that you're choosing to expand in, but are there other ways that you're looking to accommodate that tourism side of the airline industry?
Oh, well, I think it's true. We're seeing it in the routes. So we're seeing additional services on Vancouver Island. We're announcing new routes, 2 for 2018, so more destinations on the island.
What are some of those, Erin?
Well, we're going to start flying Vancouver to Fino, and then the other one's still under wraps. But yeah, we're going to see more connectivity. So that's something that we're looking forward to. And I guess, yeah, with the change in the economies, it was just sort of fortuitous that so much of what we like to do recreationally is in, also surrounded by where traditionally there were great resources. So as we're seeing maybe those scale back a bit, opportunities for tourism are abounding. And I also think that the busyness and sort of the population increases in the Lower Mainland are growing towards bolstering the affinity for the region. So people want to escape the Lower Mainland and come here and
Have that experience.
Yeah, and
quick travel.
We know Campbell River for the coast, but we also have great mountain resources here too, and people are beginning to catch on.
Well, that's a great sort of segue into what we're going to be talking about after the break, hearing more about what are some of the challenges and opportunities that you're seeing in your industries, and then how is tourism really moving forward going to shape Campbell River, because I think there's a lot of really exciting things that are happening, not only in the plan that you're all planning to implement for TAC, for the implementation of the advisory committee's plan, but we're also seeing that there's a real need to grow in a number of areas that we haven't even tapped yet. So I look forward to you joining us again in the second half of our show. Again, our guests today are Paul Dowler, Kristen Soder, and Erin Neely, and we'll be back to talk more about tourism, the hospitality industry in Campbell River. Welcome back to Insights in Business. Today's segment is on tourism, the hospitality industry, and our guests today are Kirsten, Paul, and Erin. So before the break, we were talking about the industry in general, and a lot has changed in terms of the tourism model for Campbell River, and it's exciting to think about all the opportunities that the next year is going to bring. So typically when we think about tourism, a lot of us focus on the summer months, but what is the shoulder season that we hear about? You know, what are they talking about when they're talking about the shoulder season, and why is that so important to the industry? Erin, what's shoulder season to you?
Well, the airline has probably a different version from a direct tourism model. My personal perspective would be any period outside of when school's gone back. So the two pre and post school term times. And you know, from my standpoint, with a mature demographic, their preference would be to travel then, and you don't have the extremes of heat, and you can get to beaches and locations and have them all to yourself. And in this region particularly, the dynamic salmon cycle and opportunities that come with wildlife viewing related to that make the fall and post-summer period maybe more enticing. And I think the proximity to a wonderful provincial park and Mount Washington is also something that many people in Campbell River, again, take for granted, but visitors could really, really take advantage of, because you have the best of both worlds. You can be at a beautiful ocean cabin, and those that don't ski can enjoy the beautiful seashore, and the rest can grab a shuttle and be at Mount Washington in short order, and without the crowds that they're encountering in the Lower Mainland. So I just see great potential, and my traditional holiday time has always been the fall, and I'm kind of grateful that many people don't know about that yet, but I just see that as one of the reasons to really look at the Campbell River area for outside of July and August.
Well, it's interesting that, like you say, it's such a different feel in the fall here, with even just being on the, watching the waves and, having that coffee outside feels a lot different than during the summer months. So, Kirsten, from your perspective, what shoulder season is defined within those months, and what are we looking at doing in terms of tourism to grow that shoulder season?
From a really practical example, I mean, that's really what we focused on in 2017. Destination Campbell River undertook a 9-week sort of fall-winter campaign. We're just coming to the end of the cycle of that now. It'll wrap on the 8th, I guess. Is that tomorrow? Mm-hmm. So really keying into exactly what Erin was talking about, highlighting the things that people may not think about in the region. When you think about how Destination British Columbia has positioned the provincial brand around supernatural BC, almost any image or B-roll footage or anything that you're seeing Destination British Columbia produce could have been filmed in Campbell River. We are so on brand with what people's perception of British Columbia is, and we aren't potentially taking as much advantage of that, particularly around like the moody skies and the all-weather adventures that can, if you've got a good jacket, Elk Falls is a 365-day-a-year experience.
Sure it is.
And speaking of experiences, I mean, we've talked about this a lot. I mean, excuse me. No one's
Paul
coming.
To share his sense of that too.
Exactly.
But finish,
I just think it's not that someone's coming here necessarily just to sleep in a hotel or just to eat at a particular restaurant. It is that combination of experiences together. I'd say that Dolphins is really positioned quite well to take advantage of a lot of that too, particularly into that shoulder season.
So, Paul, what does shoulder season look like for you then? What at Dolphins, or your sense of being in the industry now for over 30 years, how important is that shoulder season, and what are the kinds of things that you would like to see happen to really grow that?
Well, one thing about the shoulder season is it's a quiet time in Campbell River in a positive way, and as trends in hospitality change, there's a lot more demand for sort of health and well-being. So retreats and things like that are big. One thing about Campbell River is it's situated right at the point of the North Island where beyond us is it's the frontier. It's really just wilderness. I mean, there's other towns there that have a lot of
Sure,
character and that kind of
sure,
thing.
but-
We have all the amenities. So it's very comfortable to stay here. There's restaurants, there's hotels, there's really everything you could need from an urban center. But the wildlife is still very alive and sort of in the town and just on the brink of it.
Right.
So where we sort of fit into that mold is that people can come here and be comfortable and have luxury, but still be able to experience
That
sort of the
wild side
wildness
of
of the
Campbell
place.
River.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Sorry, if I was just going to jump in. I mean, that's really where the brand positioning came from. We did a place DNA exercise earlier this year where there was, again, a lot of sort of community consultation about, like, what do we stand for and what are our social values here and what do we want to be known for. And, for Aaron to mention, the cycle around the salmon, I mean, that is so critical to who we are and our history and our culture and food and all of the wildlife that spins off of this cycle. So
what is the brand?
So, I mean, really, it's that we are a city nestled in nature.
Oh, okay.
So, being that Campbell River is at the center of the frontier, if you will, we're just working on a campaign right now that we're rolling out that at the center of that is sort of welcome to the wild. So, looking at where we are geographically positioned in relation to this
Such great
broader
words. Welcome to the wild, nestled in nature.
Yeah.
They just conjure up images. A lot of what Aaron was talking about in terms of that experience during the shoulder season in the winter and being able to access it year round. Those are just great, inspiring words for what we have. Oftentimes, I'm sure we all get asked this question. People will say, "Well, I'm coming to Campbell River, first time in Campbell River, and what should I do?" So I'm going to ask each of you if you could have like your top 5 things for people to experience in Campbell River. Paul, what would be your top 5 things for people to do?
Oh, maybe I could lay it out as how I might spend a day.
Awesome, sure.
So you want to get up nice and early.
Okay.
Experience the.
How early is early, Paul?
Well, it depends. It depends what you're doing. We're talking about going fishing here, so it would depend what time the sun came up.
Okay.
So let's say 6 a.m.
Okay.
You get up in the morning, make your way to the Quinsam River, which is a tributary of the actual Campbell River. You can go by Roger Craig Brown's heritage house where he lived and wrote his many famous books. And it's an amazing little river to fish, and it's a beautiful way to spend the morning.
Fly fishing was his big way of fishing. He did a lot of fishing, but
Yeah, Roger Craig Brown was he was a fly fisherman,
Right.
but he was a lot more than that. He spoke about, we're talking about the cycles of the salmon, but also cutthroat trout and steelhead and the various other species and how they're all connected.
So I've had my coffee. I've gone down to
Yes.
the river, done my fishing.
Yes,
What's next?
hopefully you've caught some fish. And then a good way to spend lunch, which is a bit of a Campbell River tradition. We're allowed to have beach fires here. So you notice when you come into Campbell River, driving through the Willow Point area, it's a part of the Island Highway that is, we have a seawall and a walk, and you'll see families and friends out. Sometimes you'll see a dozen beach fires happening all times of the year. So that's a great way to gather and connect, and it's a very it's part of Campbell River culture to do.
Very unique to be
such
able
a
to
thing.
do that on the beach. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And then another thing to do after you sort of had a chance to be in the marine environment, which really speaks to the culture of our town, is to make your way up to the Elk Falls Suspension Bridge. It's breathtaking. It's something that really has to be seen to be believed.
It's amazing. That whole experience, being at the falls and being able to cross over that suspension bridge, second highest, I think it is in BC.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the case.
And
So
it's free.
Yes, and it's free.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
families can go without emptying their wallets. Yeah.
very true.
So I'm getting tired doing all these things, but I'm invigorated. So I've done my suspension bridge walk. Now where?
The thing that you're going to probably want to do at that point is come back into town. You might want to try a flight of beer at the Beachfire Brew House.
The newest little brew pub in town.
So they have delicious beer there. You might want to choose a restaurant. Dolphins Resort is a place I like. There's many other different places to go and enjoy a meal.
And it's intimate, and you get to look at the ocean while you're enjoying your dinner, which is so the viewscapes of the restaurants and the amenities in Campbell River, that's just really something spectacular
It's
as
true.
well. Yeah.
And again, I think that at any establishment that you visit here, you'll feel the authenticity of the people here and the warmth and the kindness, and that is really kind of what the town is all about. So that's
Paul,
how I
that sounds
spend
like
my day.
a lovely day. I think I've done part of that. So Erin, how about you? What would your perfect day to describe to a visitor?
A perfect day for a visitor. There's so much to do. I guess it would be, I like to do the fish and chips down on the pier. Campbell River Pier is spectacular. That was the last place I saw a pot of orca from. So, you know, without even going out with one of the great tours here, you can often see great wildlife experiences just from the shore. I can watch the water changes through. It's a very dynamic waterscape. I've grown up in BC and looked at water all my life, but the drama of the tidal change in that area and how the wildlife reacts with it is quite special. So yeah, a visit to the pier would be in order. If my friends are handy, maybe a boat trip out to Middlenatch is pretty
nice.
Wonderful way to spend an afternoon, and again, experience BC sailor or coaster, and Middlenatch is absolutely a wonderful ecological gem that's right on our doorstep. So coming in from that, I might want a bit of culture. I think our museum is world class.
It is world class.
I often will take visitors there because again, a beautiful view of the ocean from there, and just a great immersive experience in BC culture without having any of the sort of, I don't know, drier aspects of museum. It's small enough that you can look through it and have a good relaxing visit.
How would you wrap up a day? What would be sort of your...
For me, it would probably be a game of tennis, but I'd also be happy to hop on a bike. And the trails in the Beaver Lodge lands are pretty spectacular. So a bit of mountain biking would probably be in order as well. So
That's awesome. That sounds like a great day. I'm going to ask you for your top 2 things that you haven't maybe heard yet.
I was going to say, I mean, this all sounds pretty good. But I think Poleni Benny at the Java Shack to start the day would be a specific. And I'm a big fan of ferry boats, and I have a soft spot for Quadra because I got engaged there. So I think too, hopping on the ferry, heading over to look at the Diambalese Cultural Center, maybe go down to Saqualuton Lodge, have a cocktail in their lounge there. Spend a bit of time over on Quadra, and I do love that walking path down around Willow Point. It's just so easy to get around.
So gorgeous down there.
Yeah.
Those are, I mean, it's inspiring just to hear you talk about your day. I get excited thinking about it. I just want to get outside and enjoy it. The other important part that I know that you're talking about in your tourism plans are Aboriginal culture and being able to experience that. So the one thing I would add on there is maybe going down to the carving hutch and just checking out all the carving that's being done there. There's an amazing amount of experiences for people to have here in the community, and sometimes we just need to be reminded ourselves, and you being our guest here today and sharing just your insights of what's happening in tourism. It's exciting. Thank you for being here. I'm really looking forward to the TAC committee and the implementation of the plans that you have. I know that you're just getting started. And again, it's just such an important industry and an economic driver for our communities. So, Kristen, Paul, Erin, there's never enough time. I know we could continue this conversation over a beer or a glass of wine sitting on the beach. But thank you for being here today. And is there anything maybe that we haven't covered in our last minute or so that you'd like to chat about? Kristen, start with you.
If I could, because storytelling is at the heart of everything that Destination Campbell River is trying to do to really frame the experience here in Campbell River. We're really trying hard to promote our hashtag of Discover Campbell River. Being able to filter and follow that feed is a really great
important
way to see how visitors look at our
destination. So we'll end on that, and we'll say thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for Insights in Business, the tourism sector. If you would like more information, how to become a Chamber member, just go to the Chamber website, www.campbellriverchamber.ca. Thank you again, everyone.